Having had the Anytone 10-metre radio, this is the AT 5555, quad 5 some people call it, in my car for some time now. I just thought I'd do a little review on how I've got along with it. This radio is available in a number of different incarnations. I think it's also been marketed as a CRT and various other models. I'll see if I can put a list of those in this video. Basically, it's all the same radio. You've got a multi-mode radio that covers actually from the 12-metre armature band, 24 megahertz, right up to 30 megahertz. So it obviously covers the CB 27 megahertz and 26 megahertz bands as well. I bought it as a 10-metre radio. 10 meters is really the easiest band to be mobile on from the car, because you can use a radio like this, which is relatively inexpensive, and for an antenna you can use a CB whip. In fact, some of the CB whips available without any adjustment will tune up into 10 meters okay. With others you may have to shorten them slightly, but they'll work well on 10. So that was the reason I chose a radio like this. Now, it's kind of a multi-purpose radio. It looks like a CB radio, and basically it is a CB radio at the end of the day, with a few differences, because it's PC programmable, so you can set the bands that you want. I'll show you how I've got this one set up. What I've done, on band A, I've got the UK FM CB band, channels 1 to 40. On band B, I've got the mid-band or CEPT band, channels 1 to 40, but then I've also added some additional channels at the top end, so that, for example, here I have 27555 is a popular call-in frequency on CB. Why have I got that in this radio? Because if there's activity on this frequency, it's often an indicator that there should be activity on 10 meters as well. But more often than not, you'll hear it first on 27. So it's worth keeping an eye on that particular frequency. If you're interested in propagation around 28 megs, you may see it on that frequency first. So those two bands are for monitoring when there's no activity on 10. Of course, I can scan the UK CB band. Not a lot of activity on that locally, but there is some. Then in band C, I've got the bottom end of the 10 meter SSB section. I'm running from 28,300 to 28,590. That'll cover most of the SSB 10 meter activity. Band D, I've got 29 megahertz up to 29,390. So within that section you'll see some 10 meter AM activity, as well as maybe some other modes. Up towards the top end you'll see some FM. The main then part of 10 meters FM is on band E, and I'm running there from 29,400 up to 29,690. Okay, so I've also got a shift programmed in on the relevant bands here to take account of the 10 meter FM repeaters. You've got a facility within these radios where you can set separate TX and RX frequencies, which is great, so you can operate the 10 meter repeaters. And then on the last band, band F on the radio, I've got 12 meters programmed in. And you can just see the range of frequencies I've got here, running from 24,890 to 24,990. So I've got the whole of the 12 meter band in here. It's actually quite lively on receive on 12 meters, and it puts out a decent amount of power, this radio, as you'll see in the power test at the end of this video. But of course, if you're running a CB whip or a 10 meter mobile whip, it's not likely to be tuned very well on 12 meters. So whilst it's in the car, I'm really just monitoring on 12. The SWR would be too high on my mobile whip. So that's the radio as I've got it set up. Obviously you can alter it, being as it's computer programmable. You can change it according to your own requirements, but that's one of the good things, one of the things I like about this radio. The other thing I like is it's low cost compared to dedicated amateur radio gear. I've been able to leave this in the car without worrying about it. If it gets a little bit knocked around, it doesn't really matter. The channelized method of tuning. See, I've got it in 10 kilohertz steps here on 10 meters FM section. That suits 10 FM great because 10 FM is channelized. Not so much with SSB. I've got this programmed in 5 kilohertz steps, but you'll see it's not always running in 5 kilohertz steps, and we'll come to why that is in a moment. But you can step up and down in 5 kcs, and then if you want to go in between those channels, then you can use the clarifier and you can step up and down in 1 kilohertz or less if you wish. Okay, so we'll just a couple of presses of the clarifier, you'll see, and we've got that last digit we can step up and down. You've got a decent amount of power, as you'll see in the power test at the end of the video. Puts out a respectable amount of power, fine for 10 meters operation. You can scan the channels, again that's useful on 10 meters FM, or if you want to scan the CB channels. Not so much use on SSB, but AM or FM it's useful. We've just got the scan button here, and there's also an automatic squelch feature which seems to work quite well. And the button for that is on the front of the transceiver here, but also it's replicated on the mic, so it's quite easy to turn the auto squelch on by pressing the central knob. And you've also got down and up buttons on the microphone, so that's quite good. And the rotary controls, you've got volume and squelch, concentric. Bit of a waste of a control, certainly for amateur radio use. You've got an echo adjustment here. RF gain, RF power, we've got the band switch, the mode switch, and the clarifier. We've got a dual watch function on a button here. We've got, we can turn the LCD off. We can switch in a noise blanker. Roger bleep can be switched on and off. We've got the scan button. A mystery to me, if you're into your CB radio, maybe you'll know why this is here. I think it's a CB function, but you've got a plus 10 kilohertz button here, and if we hit it, you'll see it just adds 10 kilohertz on to whatever frequency we're on. I don't understand the function because we could just switch up and down through the channels, okay, to do that. So somebody will probably know. I find that button a nuisance because often I'll hit that instead of the scan button, and it knocks my channels out that I've got programmed into the radio. The other problem is if you press that 10 kilohertz button, switch up to the next one, it still holds when you go back to that channel, so that the radio remembers that plus 10 has been pressed. You have to press it again to unset it. The clarifier, similarly, if we switch the clarifier in, and instead of 430, let's do that again. It times out quite quickly, the clarifier as well. Let's go to 432 there on that channel. Okay, we switch up to 435, come back, it remembers the clarifier was switched in. Maybe some people would find that a useful feature. Personally, I find that a nuisance, so I would rather that disappeared when I switch channels. But unfortunately, the radio remembers it in the same way that it remembers the plus 10 button. So it's an ideal radio for 10 meters FM, and it would be for AM. I haven't worked anyone on AM on it on 10. I have worked some FM, and I've worked some SSB. SSB is simpler, obviously, if the station is on one of the 5 kilohertz channels directly that are programmed in. That's very easy. If they're slightly off, then I have to use the clarifier. A little bit fiddly when you're mobile, but it is possible. I've done it. you know, switching in the clarifier to get your 1 kilohertz steps or less. So it's possible to use it quite well on 10 meters SSB, much easier on AM or FM. Radio's quite big, probably bigger than it needs to be because it's relatively lightweight considering the size. There's not an awful lot inside here, but it's like quite a big unit. The display here I found to be nice and bright, even in bright sunlight in the car. No problems reading this frequency display. It's not too dazzling at night, but it works well in the daylight, so that's fine. You've got the channel display there, which is useful if you want to use it on the CB channels, but for 10 meter use, it's not that necessary. But overall, I'm quite happy with the radio for what I paid for it. I think it's an ideal radio for a bit of casual 10 meter working. There's sufficient power output. As I say, the display is decent on it. It's not the same standard as your Yaesu's, Icoms or Kenwood amateur radio gear, but then it's not going to cost you anything like that. As far as I know, this is still available new. They're still around. They seem to be very popular radios. As I say, they're sold under several brands. Possibly for 10 meter only use, the dearer one, I think it's the more expensive radio, the AT, I think it's the 6666. Might have been a better bet, I don't know. This is the one I've got anyway. It's going to stay in the car as long as 10 meters is in reasonable shape. And we have a bit of fun with it. It's quite bulky, and I've had to mount it sort of vertically on my center console with the radio facing up like that. That's how I've got it mounted in the car, rather than flat. But it still works well. I'm still able to see the display, so no problems there. So there it is, the Anytone AT 5555. Those are my thoughts on it. A cheap mobile for 10 meters, or if you're into such things, 11 meters CB, SSB, AM, FM, whatever. You'll see the power output. It puts a good deal of power out. More than enough, I think, for mobile working from the radio itself. You won't need a linear or anything like that. Have a look at the power measurements at the end of this video and see what you think. Okay, I've got the Anytone 5555 out of my car at the moment. The car's going in for a service tomorrow. So I've taken the radio gear out. This is the radio I use on 10 meters. I thought I'd take this opportunity to bring it into the shack and do an RF power test, because I haven't done one on this radio. I have been using it on 10 meters. So you can see I've got it on the lowest 10 meter band frequency that I have programmed into the radio, 28300. I'm in AM mode, so I'm just going to key up, give it a little bit of a whistle to modulate it and see what power output we get on AM. I've got the RF power setting right round to the max here on the control. So let's see what we can get. So hopefully you can see there we peaked at about 28 watts on AM. 28 watts on AM full power. Let's just switch to FM. And we've got 42.9 watts, 43 watts then almost on FM. Let's try sideband, upper sideband. Let's give a little whistle. It's about 38 watts or so, 38 watts was the max I saw there on upper sideband. I'll just go up to the higher end of what I've got programmed into the radio here, so into 29 megahertz. And we'll go up to 29690. That's the highest 10 meter frequency I've got programmed in. We'll go on to FM. And we've got 43.5 there on FM. AM. Oh, about 28 watts on AM. and upper sideband about 37 watts, I think I saw was the maximum there. Now, of course, this radio is not legal to use on CB frequencies, certainly not in the UK. I don't think it's legal on CB anywhere, one of these, but I guess there are some people that are going to want to know what the power output is on the CB bands. So I'll just go to the UK set of frequencies I've programmed in here for receive purposes, and I'll switch to FM, and let's get down to the bottom there, channel 1 on FM, and the radio's on 42 watts, channel 40, again 42.5 watts, and we can go to the old mid-band frequencies, which are going to be there, and let's have a look. Got a few extra frequencies in here. So we have channel 1, that's 41 watts there, and 40 is 41.8 watts. So pretty evenly across the various bands. I've also got 12 meters programmed into this radio, 24 megs band. So let's see what the power output is there. So on 24, we'll go up a little bit into the sideband part of the band, let's say 24,930. And what we'd be interested in here is upper sideband. So let's give a little whistle. Again, about 39 watts on SSB on this band, so that's not bad at all. So what I'd also like to show you is the adjustment, the power adjustment we've got. So if I go to 10 meters, 10 meter call-in frequency here, 29,600. On full power FM, we've got 43.4, 43.3 watts. I'm going to put the RF output control to about the halfway mark here, the 12 o'clock setting. We've got 16 watts, 16.7. And let's take it right down to the minimum power that we can manage on this band. And just over 2 watts. So we've got quite a good adjustment with a minimum power of 2 watts, low power of 2 watts, and a high power of 43. And if I take the control gradually back, you can see it dropping. We can set it at around 20 watts, which is just past the 12 o'clock mark, or right down to the minimum of just over 2 watts, 2.1 watts. So I hope that was of interest. That's the Anytone 5555 or Quad 5, whatever you want to call it. 10 meter radio, and quite an impressive range of power outputs over the various modes.